Good morning, everyone. We will be getting started in a moment. Delayed to start a little bit today because I didn't charge my mics and randomly the battery runs out. So I had to charge them up a little bit. So we should be good on the mics. If my mic starts to fail, actually, I'll probably switch mics in the middle of this. But hope everybody's having a great Friday and everybody's had a great week. We are going to get into the topic here today. We're going to talk about Mr. Epstein because there is a part of this conversation that nobody is having. And I think there's a reason why nobody's having this part of the conversation. They got everybody distracted on the wrong thing. We're going to get into that. So people, tell me your location as you are checking in. Tell me your location as you're checking in. If you're watching on TikTok, like the live. If you're watching on TikTok, like the live. We are not even at 1,000 likes yet. Like the live if you're checking in on TikTok. Just tap the screen, tap the screen, tap the screen, tap the screen, tap the screen. Let's get the likes up over on TikTok. And then we can get into this conversation. So, and also tell me your locations as you are checking in. Tell me where you are checking in from. Everybody who is watching on different apps. We are live. Tuscaloosa, Alabama. What's going on? King Works. We are live on Rumble Studio. We are live on YouTube. We are live on LinkedIn. We are live on X. Let me check and make sure we're live on X. We are live on X. It says 8 people right now watching on X. Maybe that number will go up. Shout out to the people watching on X through Rumble Studio, YouTube, and LinkedIn as well. Let me make sure we are good on those apps, good on Facebook, good on LinkedIn. We are live on Instagram. Tuscaloosa's here. Newburgh, New York is here. Houston, Texas. Your Dapper account, Art by C. Collins. Good morning to both of you. Over on TikTok. Get the likes up, please, folks. Get the likes up on TikTok. Just tap the screen. KS Priest 1201. Good morning. But the first comment, Nikki, happy Friday to you. Congrats on getting the #1 gifter badge early. Nikki checking in from Connecticut. Good morning. Trucker J from Texas. Shout out to Texas. George is in the building. Jan also from Texas. Live Free from Thailand. Shout out to Thailand. I know someone who just moved to Thailand. Ron from Lima, Ohio. Shout out to Lima, Ohio. Trucker J said about to head to Cali. Are you driving or are you flying? That's a long drive if you're driving. But shout out to everybody going to Cali. Marlene, good morning from North Carolina. Good morning. Traditional all day. Good to see you in here. Yes, please tap the screen, folks. Everybody tap the screen. Traditional, thanks for letting them know. Marky Man checking in from Sacramento. Appreciate you. Congrats on the gifter badge. Dr. K, thank you for the lightning bolt. Good morning. As y'all are coming in, shout yourselves out. Gary Gray, 5101. Good morning. Kenneth Young, 253 from Dallas. Shout out to Dallas. Trucker J said he's driving. That's a long drive, boy. Texas is a big state, so I guess it depends on what part of Texas you're coming from. That's a long drive, Texas to California, but good luck to you. Stay awake. Good morning from upstate New York, Tiny Space Roadie, Irma V. Good morning. Irma's consistently #1 gifter over here in the live, so shout out to Irma V. Shina H, hello, good morning. Good to see you in here. And thanks for the follow, Jan, over there. So the topic here today, we're going to talk about Mr. Jeff Epstein. This has been probably, if I think about everything going on in the news this week, probably the biggest story has been this Jeff Epstein thing. Jeff Epstein is not alive anymore. He hasn't been alive for several years, but everyone is talking about this Epstein list. And we got to talk about this again because people are still talking about it. So when I do these live streams, usually I'm going with current events. So whatever the current event is, I usually am talking about something related to that. This is the one that keeps coming up. So let's get to it. So my claim, here's my position here today that I'm going to build this case. I believe the general public has been distracted. The public has been distracted on this Epstein thing. I don't mean by the Epstein thing, on the Epstein thing. People are distracted. What I mean by that is everybody's obsessing over this infamous alleged Epstein list. Isn't that what everybody's talking about? Is Trump on the list? Is Obama on the list? Is Biden on the list? Who's on the list? We want to see the list. If kids were abused, we want to know who was on the list, who was doing bad things to kids and all of these things. Everybody's talking about this list as if the list has all the answers. I don't think the list has all the answers. Here's the most important question that nobody's asking, that I'm going to ask today, and this is what we're going to talk about here today. Here's the thesis of what we're going to do for the next hour plus. Where did the money come from? Nobody's asking this question. Where did the money come from? I'm not as concerned about the list. If I was concerned at all, I'm not concerned at all about the situation. But if I was concerned, I'm more concerned about the money than I am about the list. Where'd the money come from? Any of you knows anything about investigations, especially when it comes to people doing crime and people who seemingly have their situation together, meaning they have money, they have access, they have resources, they have food, clothing, shelter, and they are not hurting for those things. If you got somebody who doesn't have those things doing crime, maybe they're doing it because they don't have food, clothing, shelter, they can't eat, they don't know how to pay their bills. Maybe that's the reason why they do crime. That's a simple cut and paste crime. But if a person already has a whole bunch of stuff, they already got a bunch of money, they already got a bunch of everything that a lot of people who don't have it are striving to get, they already got it, why would they do a crime? The answer usually is not because this person just has this criminal mind and they just want to do crime and they can't help themselves. It's usually not that. Usually it has something to do with accumulating more power, more control, and more influence. So power, control, and influence, the most common way that they are exchanged in the world that we live in today, this, what's the word that I'm looking for here? This, let's just call it contemporary society. Usually it's money. And if you're doing an investigation, you want to find out why somebody with power would do something that seemingly they don't need to do. The answer is follow the money. That's always the answer. Follow the money. Where's the money coming from? Who's in control of the money? Why? And the people who do it with the money, they do it because it gets them more power. So they want to get power. And this is where the Epstein list may come into the conversation, because people are saying, and I believe it was, not I believe, I know, yesterday, Candace Owens started a series where she's talking about Epstein. And in her series, she is starting to, basically, she's building this. She has a format that she follows where she's giving you the whole, we'll call it the family tree of the Maxwells and how Epstein fits in. She just started talking about the Maxwells, like Ghislaine Maxwell's father, him, and who he was and what he was doing, and the mom. And she's starting to build the case. And she's going to build out this whole case. She's very good at this. You want to see somebody doing investigative journalism at a high level and doing it through YouTube. She's not the only one, but she's one of the most visible ones. She does a very good job of this on YouTube. Whether you are a fan of her conclusions or not, it shouldn't even come into the conversation, because you just got to let her build the case, and you decide if she got something wrong, she got something right. And I'm saying all that to say that nobody's following the money. I'm pretty sure as Candace goes on, she's probably going to get around to talking about the money, which is what an investigative journalist should do, but nobody's mentioning this. Where'd the money come from? This is the question that there's a woman out there named Vicky Ward. I don't know if any of you know of Vicky Ward. I personally had never heard of Vicky Ward until a few days ago. I heard Vicky on the Megyn Kelly show, and this is Vicky's X account. It is Vicky P.J. Ward. Her name is Vicky P.J. Ward. She is an investigative journalist, and she's also a New York Times bestselling author and a podcaster, according to her bio. She is a visiting fellow at Oxford University, and she has a newsletter, VickyWardInvestigates.com. I'm not on her newsletter, but this is her X account that I'm showing you. And in this conversation she was having with Megyn Kelly, Vicky Ward was going into the finance questions around Jeff Epstein. And there's a clip that Megyn Kelly posted from the show. It's about 15 minutes long. Y'all can see this on Vicky Ward's account. She reposted it. Y'all can listen to it and hear it come out of her mouth. But some of the things that she brought up were very poignant things that got my curiosity going. And that's why we're talking about what we're talking about here today. Get the likes up on TikTok. We're at 10K. Let's get to 15K, please. So Vicky Ward claims that she's been trying to answer these questions about Epstein for 20 years. Questions around where does this guy get his money from? Because the thing about Jeff Epstein, I think I mentioned this a couple days ago. What I said about Epstein is that he was a finance guy and he had all this money because of his financial endeavors, and he worked at these big Wall Street firms, and they do hedge funds, they do mergers and acquisitions, they invest in things, and this is how they make their money. And usually when people hear those type of terms, they kind of just mentally gloss over and say, okay, they got money because they work in finance, et cetera, et cetera. And that sounds good. But the thing is, here's what Vicky says, because she was the first mainstream reporter to dig into Epstein. And she started digging into Jeff Epstein in 2003. So most of us didn't hear about Jeff Epstein till when? Like around the time that the trial happened, right? I personally had never heard of Jeff Epstein. This was around, 2017, 2018. That's when I first heard of the guy. Before that, nobody had ever heard of this guy in the mainstream. She was digging into this guy 20 years ago. And she was the first mainstream reporter doing it. And she is repeatedly pointed out the same issue, that Epstein's fortune didn't make sense, according to her. It didn't make sense how this guy had so much money. because Jeff Epstein, according to what she has reported, Jeff Epstein had no traditional business. It was not obvious who his clients were, if he had any, and he had no transparent operations. This is all according to an investigative journalist, Vicky Ward. No business, no clients, no operations that were obvious to see. Now, it doesn't mean he couldn't have a business, clients, and operations. But if you're at that level, usually somebody knows somebody who knows somebody that knows what you're doing and who you're doing it with. And he lived in one of the largest private homes in Manhattan. When he got it, it was the most expensive townhouse in all of Manhattan Jeff Epstein owned. Any of you knows anything about real estate in Manhattan? It's next to San Francisco Bay. It is the most expensive area in America. He owned the most expensive townhouse in town. He had a bunch of properties all over the world, not just that island, but a bunch of other properties. And he would fly powerful men to his private islands on his private jet, which says what? This guy obviously has a lot of financial resources. He was granted full power of attorney over this guy named Leslie Wexner's finances. So this guy named Leslie Wexner, if y'all don't know who he is, you can look into him, but he was a powerful person. And he had full power of attorney over Mr. Wexner's finances. And to this day, no one has conducted a public audit or a full forensic trace of Jeff Epstein's accounts or where his money came from. That part right there, you should notice. To this day, after he has passed away, however you think he passed away, whatever you think the cause was, whatever, forget about the list. No one's done a full forensic trace on Epstein's accounts and the money. No one has done it. Not even the organizations that brought him in for charges and were set to take him to trial. No one's done a forensic background on where this guy's money came from or trace the money. No one's even tried. That should raise a huge, huge red flag to all of you right now. Now, instead, what we got was the trial of Mrs. Maxwell, Ghislaine, and that was a spectacle that focused on one woman while it systematically avoided the empire that enabled her and Epstein to operate, because we know that Maxwell and Epstein were connected. We all know that. We all agree to that. The trial was only about Maxwell, and it only focused on her behavior, and it didn't really focus on the bigger picture, which has led to some people throwing out the theory that this was done on purpose, strategically, that Epstein, however, whatever happened to him, he disappeared. He's not alive anymore. According to, that's the official record. He's not alive anymore. So he avoided trial where they would have gotten into his stuff. And with the Maxwell trial, that was, some people say that was just a show trial, similar to the Diddy trial. It was a show trial to go after one person and put that one person away. But all the other people connected to this one person who got put away, they avoid any form of accountability because the trial didn't even go into any of the other stuff or any other people that this person might have been connected to. And this is what people said about the Diddy trial. The Diddy probably had people coming to his freak offs, his parties, that were luminaries, people bigger and higher on the food chain than Diddy was, higher up on the food chain than Diddy. But if the trial had gone in that direction, it would have created a huge web of a whole bunch of really powerful people and entities, maybe all getting pulled down at the same time. They didn't want to go that route, so they didn't allow it to happen. So they only focused on Diddy and a few things that they could charge Diddy with. And now that they did that, now they can put this case away and we never have to deal with this again. And it basically cleans the hands of all the people that may have been involved whose names never got mentioned. They're saying the same thing happened with this Maxwell trial and avoiding going into the Epstein empire because he was the one that was really running things. Maxwell was working for him. Why are they not bringing these things up? So this is what some are saying. Okay, and they focus just on Maxwell and not on Epstein. Now, Vicky Ward has said it plainly that the prosecutors never followed the money and they didn't do it on accident, or they didn't not do it on accident. They never followed the money because any investigator knows, anybody who knows anything about crime, again, as I already explained to you, people at a higher level, when they're doing these crimes, why would they do it? I mean, they already got money. You would think most people do crimes so they can make money. They already got money. So why is this guy doing these things? And had they followed the money, they may have connected to what exactly this person was doing, why exactly they were doing it, and who else was involved. And it may have led to a web of very powerful, well-connected, influential, big-name individuals. And the theory is that the government didn't want to go there. They didn't want to go that route. They didn't want to touch these names because a lot of very important things may have collapsed had they started following the money. And they got told by somebody, somewhere, somehow, limit what you're doing to just this and don't go any further than that because they didn't want to touch on things that they didn't want to touch. So that's the theory here. And she said it plainly. They never followed the money. In any real criminal investigation, as I already explained to you all, money is the map. It shows who's involved, who benefits, who's being protected. This is a question you should always ask when you see any powerful entity doing something that seemingly doesn't make sense. Follow the money. Who benefits? How do they benefit? Why do they want this benefit? What are they getting out of this? If you ask that question, usually it's going to lead somewhere towards money. And Jeff Epstein was known for having a ton of money. The guy, after all, the guy owned the damn island. How did he own an island when it's not even clear how he was making his money? Because it's not like he was some super established finance guy. He was known as a finance guy, but he wasn't even super established amongst people who know finance. And y'all know Jeff Epstein didn't even go to college. He didn't have a college degree. Actually, I don't know if he went, but he didn't have a college degree. And this is the guy that has all of his money, and he just out-financed everybody. This guy, it doesn't add up. Doesn't mean it's not true, but it doesn't add up. So in this case, no one is following the map of the money, because the theory is if you follow the map of the money, you may unearth an entire ecosystem of people, institutions, and possibly governments that were involved in this. That's the theory. Again, I'm not reporting this. That's the theory. Now, some say that Epstein was not just a bad guy, that he was possibly an asset. Everybody know what that means? Please keep liking the live over there on TikTok. Like the live. We're at 20,000. Let's get to 25. He was possibly an asset. An asset meaning, in simple terms, he was being used by a certain government in a certain place for certain reasons, and he was to be protected. What he was doing was to be protected because they were using him as an asset, because an asset is something that helps you get control and power, and the government may not have been able to do what they wanted to do directly on their own. They wanted to keep their hands clean, so they used Epstein in order to do it. And then the question becomes, if you're following this theory, why would Epstein allow himself to be used by a government? Because that's an important question. If a government is going to use you as an asset, they have to have something over you to where they say, hey, we're going to have you do ABC, and you know that ABC are not good things. We're going to have you do ABC. Now, why would someone agree to doing ABC knowing that it is not good? Knowing that you are putting yourself in a line of fire legally, criminally, why would you do it? Well, usually because that government knows they have something over you. So they say, if you don't go along with doing ABC, here's what we're going to do to you. So you got a choice. Either let them do that to you or you go along with the plan. And this is the theory that what happened with Epstein is that he became an asset for some entity. We don't know who. I'm not reporting who. He became an asset for some entity, and then they used him as a pawn, basically, to get others under their influence and under their wing. All right, this is the theory that we're going to work off of here today. So let me introduce myself. For those who don't know me, my name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day. I'm a former 9-year professional athlete. I'm the author of several books, and I run this company called Work on Your Game Incorporated. What we do here is we take discipline and structure, we turn those into results and execution and results. And we do it systematically, we do it predictably, we do it consistently. So if you are an entrepreneur, you're an ambitious person, you have a sales team, you have a team of people you need motivated and activated to go out there and produce on a consistent basis, we're the people that you come to. You can learn more about that by going to the links in my profile or the links in my bio profile or the pin link that you see on whatever app you're watching me on. I am on 7 platforms right now: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Rumble, and X, all at the same time. So I have different cameras on me right now talking to all of you. So any of you who has just heard what I just said, you want to learn more about that, just go to the link in whatever profile you are watching me on. Now, I'm going to get through this material, then we're going to open the floor up for conversation. We'll be done this no later than 9:30 a.m. Eastern. Everybody got it? So we got about 57 minutes total to get through everything we're doing here. So Epstein's wealth was never clearly explained. Even Wall Street insiders couldn't quite trace where he got his money from. Now, again, Jeff Epstein was noted as a finance guy. He got his money from doing finance work, but nobody could tell where his money came from, even though he was a finance guy. Even people who worked in finance didn't know where this guy's money came from. Usually, if you're doing your thing in a certain space, other people in that space know about you. They know what you're doing. They can tell you why this person's good, why this person is okay. They have an idea of who you are, where you came from, and what you're doing. Even people on Wall Street didn't really know this guy and where he got his money from. So prosecutors and the media focus a lot more on Mrs. Maxwell than they focus on Epstein's operations or finances. And again, this is where the theories come in. Was this whole thing a conspiracy just to protect the idea of Mr. Epstein and not go as deep as to following the money, because it would have took them somewhere that they didn't really want to go. Them being investigators, they didn't really want to go there, or they already knew where it was going to go. They already knew exactly where it would go if they went that direction. So they said, we're not going to go that direction. We're only going to go this direction. That's the question that is up. That's the question here. And that's why the focus went on Mrs. Maxwell. Now, somebody may say, well, why they focus on Mrs. Maxwell? They put her in jail for, what she get, 20 years? Wayne Maxwell, 20 years? Well, why they allow her to go to jail? Well, somebody got to take the fall. Looks like Miss Maxwell became the fall guy, so to speak, for this whole situation, if you follow this theory. Now, again, this is just a theory. I'm not reporting this and saying that it's true. It's just a theory. Now, Vicky Ward, again, as I said, she has been investigating Epstein for over 20 years, and she has repeatedly emphasized that the real story here is the money trail. And I agree with her, because if a man has enough money to own the biggest or the most expensive townhouse in Manhattan, and he owns an island, and he has his own private plane, obviously this guy has money. You probably want to look into his money and how he was doing what he was doing. This is one of the things with the Diddy case that just happened, was it was a RICO charge. The RICO charge that there was a conspiracy that he was using his business to commit crime, but they weren't able to prove that because he really wasn't using his business to commit crime. But at least they brought the idea up. It was a weak idea, but they brought it up. They didn't bring this up with Epstein. Well, he didn't go to trial. But nobody has really dug into where this guy's money was coming from. And again, Vicky Ward has been going over this for a long time. I didn't know about her, but I'm glad that I found out. Now, the mainstream media has largely ignored the question of who funded Epstein, and they have instead opted for sensationalism. Now, there's a ton of reasons why you could come up with why they did that. Did they not know? Were they not thinking about it? Did someone tell them, hey, leave that alone? We don't know. Epstein was given, again, full financial power by Leslie Wexner. So let's look up this Leslie Wexner guy and get a little bit of background on him, because Candace Owens, I believe she touched on his name when I was listening to her first episode in that series last. So it's this guy. No, so they give me more than one Leslie Wexner. 1 minute. Let's find this person. Stand by. All right, so let's find the actual Leslie Wexner that I'm looking for. They're giving me different people here. They gave me some attorney in Texas. So this guy's name, usually known as Les Wexner. He's the billionaire founder of L Brands. Those of you never heard of L Brands, they're a bigger company that owns a bunch of other smaller companies. One of their smaller companies that they own is called Victoria's Secret. All of you have heard of them. So a comprehensive, did I misspell the name? Maybe, I misspelled the name. That's why they got it wrong. Okay. So somewhere around 1986, 1987, Les Wexner and Jeff Epstein met. They got introduced by insurance executive Robert Meister. Epstein became his primary and possibly only major client. So Wexner was allegedly a client of Jeff Epstein, allegedly. Now, Epstein was granted full power of attorney in 1991 over Mr. Wexner. Full power of attorney means he can oversee somebody's finances. You can sign checks for them. You can buy and sell things on their behalf. You can make binding legal decisions on behalf of another person when you have power of attorney. Those of you want a point of reference for what power of attorney means. It's usually something that you give up when you may be personally, like mentally, you don't have control of your faculties, or physically you can't do things anymore. So you get power of attorney to a family member or somebody you trust, or your husband or your wife, and they can make final decisions for you because you can't make decisions on your own. There's also something that if you ever hear a story of an athlete or an entertainer making a bunch of money, but then they go broke, it's often because they have granted power of attorney to their agent or to a lawyer or to some advisor. And then the advisor takes advantage of the stupidity or the ignorance of the athlete or entertainer, and they start signing off on things on behalf of that person without the person even knowing where their money is going. And when that person wakes up and realizes there's a problem, all the money is gone. So that's power of attorney. When you sign over power of attorney, in other words, another person can make decisions about your money without having to consult you. So it's a very, you better be very careful signing over power of attorney. My suggestion to all of you is never sign over power of attorney to anyone. Every check that comes through with your name on it, you need to see it. And every check that goes out with your name on it, you need to see it. If you're going to put time into anything, put time into knowing where your money's going. But not for nothing. Let's continue. So Epstein was granted power of attorney over Wexner in 1991. Now, there was a deep integration. He managed Les Wexner's assets including his properties, including a yacht that he owned. He served on this guy's foundation, the board of the foundation. He even had influence in the operations of Victoria's Secret. Jeff Epstein even posed as a model recruiter, accessing young women under the guise of being a model recruiter. Again, this is according to reports. Now, in the 1990s, allegations arose that Epstein had abused his position by posing as a Victoria's Secret recruiter, and then he would assault women in the process, according to reports. Now, Wexner severed ties with Epstein in 2007 after Epstein got criminally charged in Florida in 2006. So Epstein got charged in 2006. Wexner stopped messing with him in 2007. Now, in 2008, after 2008, Wexner claimed, reportedly, that Epstein misappropriated vast sums of money, estimating around $46 to $47 million. So, Wexner gave power of attorney to Jeff Epstein in the early 90s. Then 17 years later, almost 20 years later, Wexner claimed, reportedly, that Epstein misappropriated money from him. In other words, took his money. And he claims it was somewhere between $46 and $47 million. Now, Epstein benefited from this whole situation immensely because Les Wexner, according to reports, he bought Jeff Epstein a mansion on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. And Epstein managed the properties that Wexner owned. That's an interesting one. A man buying another man a house. I've never heard of that. I heard a man buy another man a watch or maybe even a car, but a house. That's an interesting one. So according to reports, that's what happened. Now, there's a docuseries called Victoria's Secret's Angels and Demons that highlight this problematic relationship and whether Wexner was ignoring warning signs. I didn't know about this documentary. Any of you ever seen it? It's on Hulu. I don't have a Hulu account. But according to this documentary, this is mentioned, this whole situation. Now, shareholders and accusers have questioned Wexner's judgment and his potential liability because of his connection to Mr. Epstein. And he stepped down in 2020 from L Brands amid pressures tied to this connection. So after the Jeff Epstein situation occurred, when he got arrested and charged federally, and then his allegedly he's no longer alive. That was in 2019. The documentary comes out around 2019, 2020. Les Wexner's name is all over this whole Epstein situation because people knew that him and Jeff Epstein were friends. Jeff Epstein's name looks bad. Leslie Wexner is the head of a big global company. And because of the connection, not because he was actually charged with anything, not because he had actually done anything wrong, Les Wexner, this is the way politics work. Because his name is connected with a guy whose name is in the garbage right now, Les Wexner had to step down from his own company. So he had to step down from L Brands in 2020 because of the ties to this connection, because all of this could hurt consumer trust. It can make stock price go down. It can make everything in the company go down. So he got pressure to step away. He stepped away. That was 5 years ago. So that's who Les Wexner is. All right. And that's all we need to say about him, at least for now. Now, here's the other piece of this. Epstein had this full power of attorney. Again, deeper connections worth investigating that were never investigated. No audit has ever been done on Epstein's finances, which seems to be an intentional blind spot in this whole case around. Let me get my timer set up here. How much time we got? Not that much. 34, what's that? 30, 18 plus 30, what is that? 48 minutes. All right, we got about 48 minutes here to continue what we're doing. Financial power and influence explain why Epstein was protected and given soft treatment for years. Some claim because he had money, because he had influence, that's why he was able to get away with things. This is things that people say all the time. Say the same thing about Diddy. The reason Diddy's going to get off, the reason he didn't get more charges or stronger charges, the reason why he's able to beat the case is because he has financial power and because he has influence. And that's why he was protected. That's why he got soft treatment. Maybe. I think it goes deeper than that. I think it's more than just having money. Because there are people who have money who can still get locked up. All right, there are plenty of people with money who got locked up. R. Kelly got locked up. It depends on what type of influence you have and what you did with that money. Just because you have money does not mean you can't have something happen. So Maxwell's trial excluded key testimony and financial records that would have exposed Epstein's network. So there were certain people not called to the stand, certain things not brought up in the trial that would have exposed a much bigger picture other than just what Ghislaine Maxwell was doing. This is the same thing that I said about the Diddy trial. If the feds were really trying to get Diddy on a RICO charge, why did they not call a bunch of his right-hand men and women to the stand to make them testify? If they were really trying to get him on the charge. Because if they were really trying to get him on the charge, they would have called his personal assistant, whose name got mentioned a bunch of times in that trial. They never called her. A bunch of his male assistants, the female assistant was his main personal assistant. Then a bunch of males who were been running with Diddy for 30 years. A bunch of their names never got mentioned. They never got called to trial. And it leaves a lot of questions. It leaves more questions than answers. Why did they not call these people to the stand? They're really trying to prove RICO. Why did they do it? And this is one of the questions that comes up when it comes to Jeff Epstein. So follow the money is a foundational principle in any real investigation. It was not done here. This client list, quote unquote, is what everybody's talking about. The client list, the Epstein list. Some say they think Trump is on the list. Some say they don't know Trump is on the list. Personally, I don't give a damn Trump's on the list or not, because just because you're on the list doesn't mean you did anything. The only thing that would matter is if they can prove somebody who's on the list actually did something illegal. And that would require, you got to go to trial to prove somebody did something illegal. You can't just claim it. You got to prove it. And who they're going to take to trial? Epstein's not here anymore. So this is the reason why the list is not really that big of a deal, even though everyone's talking about the list and transparency and we got to put things out. The question that I ask about the list that tends to shut down a whole lot of this back and forth is, why did the Democrats not put the list out? Because Biden was president during the bulk of the time that we've known about Epstein. Epstein passed in 2019? Biden became president there was a 2020 election. He became president in 2021. He had 4 years. Did y'all see what they tried to do to stop Donald Trump from running/winning in 2024? You telling me they had access to this knowing that he was on the Epstein list and they didn't put it out there? That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't even add up. So if Trump was on the list, the files that Pam Bondi, current attorney general, is throwing out there that she has or had access to and was selling that she's going to put the list out, et cetera, et cetera. That list, Pam Bondi didn't show up to the White House with that list. That list or those files, those files already existed in the government. The government already had the files because they had charged Jeff Epstein. They had all the files, which means when Pam Bondi came into her office, the files already existed, which means whatever administration was in there before that, that would be Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, they had access to the files too. So you're telling me that they looked through the files, saw Donald Trump in there, and they didn't leverage that as a way of discrediting or smearing Donald Trump's name to keep him from winning the 2024 election? That doesn't make any sense, which tells me that either this alleged list doesn't exist, and or if it does exist, Trump's not on it, and or if it does exist and Trump is on it, there's a bunch of other people on the political left who are on it. Therefore, nobody wants to talk about the list. It has to be one of those three. There's no way Trump was on the list and they could use that to make him look bad and they didn't use it. That just doesn't add up. So people like Vicky and there's another person named Whitney Webb, they've been pointing out these inconsistencies for years, but they are just journalists. They don't work in the government, so they can't make the government investigate anything the government does not want to investigate. This is the way it works. This is another thing you got to understand about the criminal justice system is that just because you have not been charged by the criminal justice system does not necessarily mean that you did not do a crime, because they don't have the resources to catch every single crime that takes place. Then just because you are charged does not mean you did commit a crime, even if you get found guilty or not guilty, because the legal system in America, the way it works, the justice system, is you do need to have money if you go through the justice system. Otherwise, stay out of court. Or even if you do have money and you want to keep it, stay out of court. So FBI, back up. The FBI has not released meaningful updates on Epstein's financial dealings since his death. I believe that's intentional. I believe it's intentional. Get the likes up, folks, on TikTok. Let's get the likes up. We're at 40,000. Let's get the 45K. The FBI has not put out anything about Jeff Epstein's finances ever since he passed away. And this is a guy who owned an island. So he wasn't just merely a millionaire. This guy owned an island, had the biggest penthouse in Manhattan, most expensive, and he had his own private jet. And he had more houses than that. And they haven't put out anything about this guy's money, even though everyone is allegedly so concerned about he was abusing children. Okay, well, how'd the guy get the money to do what he was doing to be in a position to abuse children? You care about him abusing children, you should care about the resources that he had and how he acquired those resources that put him in a position to where he could do what he was doing. Why is nobody asking that question? The mainstream, nobody's asking the question. There are people asking it, but not in the mainstream. Nobody's asking this question. And it needs to be asked. Epstein owned massive properties, a private island, and multiple jets. Yet, no one can trace his legitimate income streams. Y'all understand that? Should I say that one again? Hold on. So I'm gonna pull up. Let's see if we can find about his properties. Jeff Epstein owned massive properties, more than one. He owned his own island, and he had multiple jets. He had more than one airplane. Yet nobody can trace his legitimate income streams, where he was actually getting his money from. So, according to what I have looked up, he owned a notorious real estate portfolio spanning the United States, the Caribbean, and Europe. So in Manhattan, he had this mansion called the Herbert N. Strauss Mansion. It was located at 9 East 71st Street on the Upper East Side in Manhattan. It was a 7-story house, 21,000 square feet. It had hidden surveillance rooms, a lead-lined bathroom, heated sidewalks, and extensive security. This guy's house. He bought it from Leslie Wexner in 1998 for $20 million. And by 2029, it was valued at $77 million. So that's a great investment property, I guess, if you want to call it that. In Palm Beach, he had a house. We know about this one. You saw the Netflix doc. This was brought up a lot. He bought it for $2.5 million in 1990. 14,000 square feet, 6 bedrooms, 3-bedroom staff quarters, a pool, a 3-car garage. And it was listed in 2021 for $22 million, sold for $18.5 million, and then they tore it down. That's what happened to the house. So because people are like, hey, this house was bad and bad things happened here. They bought the house. So he purchased it for 2.5. It got sold for 18.5. So again, good investment by him. And it got torn down. So the house is not there anymore. In the U.S. Virgin Islands, this is a private islands. So he had this place called Little St. James. He purchased this in 1998. This is the place where allegedly the stuff was happening. So Epstein Island was Little St. James where he had the stuff happening allegedly. There was another place called Great St. James. He acquired this one in 2016. Features high-end amenities like an amphitheater and a submerged pool office. Together, these are all valued at $125 million, and they were listed for sale after he passed away. So his houses were worth, just on the islands alone, worth $125 million. In New Mexico, he had a ranch called the Zorro Ranch. This is 7,500 acres. He acquired this in 1993. 26,000-foot mansion, 4,000-foot courtyard, private runway and a hangar. Private runway and hangars for his airplanes. A mayor target of investigations and location of alleged offenses. So he was alleged of doing bad things in this place too. In Paris, he had an apartment. Told you this guy had a lot of real estate. He had an apartment in Paris, multiple units in Paris, near the Arc de Triomphe on 22 Avenue Foch. This is likely served as, they say, bolt holes. I don't even know what that means for his network. Additional residences. He rented a townhouse at 34 East 69th Street in Manhattan, so not far from his other house. He had another house for 3 years. He owned a mansion outside of Columbus, Ohio, via Wexner connections. He rented office space at the Villard House, 457 Madison Avenue in Manhattan. And he maintained employee and guest apartments. So he had houses for his employees at 301 East 66th Street, also in Manhattan. So Jeff Epstein was heavy in Manhattan. Now, some say that these were luxury residences. Others say these are places where he did things against the law. And there were secret cameras, isolated setups for enabling the things that he was doing. So as you can see, Jeff Epstein wasn't playing small when it came to the housing. This guy had a lot of housing. And he had jets. Let's see if we can find out about his jets. Stand by. Let's see if we can find out about Jeff Epstein's airplanes. So he owned a small fleet of private jets. I didn't know he had a small fleet. I knew he had a plane, but it turns out he had multiple planes. So he had a Boeing 727, also known as the Lolita Express. This was registered under a Delaware-based company, so you didn't know it was his if you didn't know. It became infamous because that's where he flew to Little St. James. That was the Epstein Island, Little St. James. And he would fly with high-profile passengers. Eventually, it was sold, and reportedly, it was dismantled. They tore the plane apart. Then he owned a Gulfstream 4, also known as a G4, also registered to his shell company in Delaware. And this logged 57 flights, mainly between New York, Palm Beach, Paris, and his islands. Then he owned a Gulfstream G5. This is registered to another company based in the Virgin Islands. This recorded 107 flights, going to international destinations, Slovakia, Morocco, Mexico, to UK. Paris to London, Paris to Bratislava, Paris to Rabat, Morocco. And flight logs show 2,500 known flights from the 1990s till 2019. And the average is a flight every 3 days. Every 3 days, this plane was going. So Jeff Epstein was not lazy. I think we can agree to that. May not be have a positive image of his name, but the guy was moving around. Do you know how much it costs to fuel a private plane flight? Just the gas alone is going to cost you it could cost you, it depends on where you're flying. Flying internationally, that's cost you $20,000, $30,000 to $50,000 just to fly, just to put gas in the plane. $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 just to put gas in the plane. This guy's plane was flying every 3 days for 30 years. This guy's plane, 25 years. So these planes were key to ferrying guests, including alleged underage victims, to his homes and private islands. Let me get some more information. And all this is in context to what we're talking about here. So let's see, where else was I saying? After his death, his estate sold the G5 for $10 million. So this plane, he sold it for $10 million. His family did. During the 2024 campaign, Donald Trump used the G5 for campaign travel when his own plane was grounded, and some people use this to criticize him. I didn't know about that. Y'all know about that? That the same plane that Epstein used to fly, Trump used it a few times for his own travel during the 2024 campaign. Now, all that has nothing to do with Donald Trump being connected to the guy. What it means is that plane is so well fitted and well set up that the former president could fly in it, because the former president can't fly in just any plane. It has to be a certain type of plane, has a certain type of setup. And Jeff Epstein plane was that good to have that kind of setup. Now, some say this is all part of his global trafficking network. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because think about the gas prices. So the biggest thing I've heard, I don't own a private jet, but I know some people who do have private jets, not like Maxwell's, but smaller jets, and they share jets. I know people who have private jets. They say the biggest thing is the gas. That's the thing that costs the most money is the gas. And they say in the U.S., prices are anywhere from $5 to $8 per gallon. So when you put gas in your car, I put gas in my car this morning, it's like $3 a gallon. For a jet, it's like twice that, 2 to 3 times that much money. Occasionally higher, depending on where you're going, or depending on where you gas up at. Another source says it could be a little bit cheaper, depending on, gas prices go up and down. So if you are flying a big jet, Gulfstream 4, a G4, it burns 500 gallons of gas every hour. So mind you, the gas costs, let's say $7 a gallon. You're burning 500 gallons every hour that the plane flies. So imagine flying from Palm Beach to New York. That's a 3-hour flight, right? 3 hours, that means you're burning 1,500 gallons times $7. Do the math. So that much gas, that means you got to spend $3,500 per hour. So that's a $10,000 flight just to fly to New York from Miami, from Palm Beach. $10,000 just to put gas in the plane. That's not including your staff, the pilots, whoever got to fly the plane. If you got a mid-sized jet, like a G550, then that's going to cost you another $1,800 or $2,100 an hour. And if you got a smaller jet, maybe $1,000 an hour. So maybe I overestimated for domestic. I overestimated. But if you're flying internationally, you got to fly across the ocean. It's a $20,000 flight. I'm saying all that to say this guy had money. This guy had money. Where's the money coming from? And if you're spending that much money because you're flying the planes, you got to still have money coming in. What was Jeff Epstein doing? What was his job? Does anybody know? What was he doing? If you're spending that much money and you got your planes flying every 3 days and you got to spend that much just to fly the plane, where are you getting the money to keep replacing the money that you're spending on the plane? Because it's not like you can fake the cost of gas. So you need gas to fly a plane. How's he replenishing the money? Why is nobody asking these questions? That's the big point here. Now, Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted, but none of Epstein's clients have been publicly charged, as we know. Financial crimes are opening the doors to exposing a broader network behind Epstein's operation, which we know, but it hasn't happened. Government and legal institutions appear more interested in burying the story than solving it. At least that's the way it looks. All that said, let's get into the conversation. Y'all tell me what you think. What are we seeing here? I'm going to get into the comments in one moment. I will tell y'all while I'm getting ready. We do these live streams Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Eastern on business days, school days. So as long as it's not a holiday, I'm here Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern. If you ever see me not live on your platform of choice, check one of the other platforms. It is quite possible that I have been suspended or banned or blocked on a platform. Usually it happens on TikTok more than it happens anywhere else. But if I'm live, I will be in at least one of these other platforms if you don't see me in your platform of choice. So you ever see me not on TikTok, just look around at one of the other apps. I'm there. The links to my YouTube and my Instagram are both in my profile on TikTok, by the way. All right, let's see what we got. OF, good morning. Thank you. OF says, I'm with some static because I don't even know what that means, what you're saying. Heel Tay 24, what's going on? It's going great. Let's see what we got in the comments over here on TikTok. If you got a comment, I'm reading from oldest and newest, so don't take it personal if I don't read your comment. Do not spam my comments by posting the same thing 10 times. Don't do that. I will see it. I'm scrolling through. Nothing personal if I don't read your comment. All right, so let's see. Marlene checking in from North Carolina. Good morning. And I'm reading from oldest and newest again. Traditional said WHO. Okay, possible. Irma, thank you for the TGIF times 50. Thank you. Jan said he got some money from a rich business owner. Well, that's a lot of money, Jan. Some money could be some thousands, maybe even millions. But to own multiple islands and multiple houses and multiple planes, that's not some money. That's a lot of money. Brain Doro said, I think he was a kink who was into the same sex. Okay, what's that got to do with the money, though? Jiray Sang said, all of it sounds stinking. Okay, fair enough. Teresa says, Senator Ron Wyden has just talked about the money. Yeah, and nobody else is talking about it. Seagram said, no funeral. Is that true? Was there no funeral? Traditional said, I wonder if Maxwell is really locked up. I think she is. I think somebody showed a video of her being interviewed from jail, I think. We're at 56,000 likes, folks. Let's get to 100. We got 30 minutes here. Sin said the Clintons. No, I don't know. The Clintons ain't got enough money to fund him. The Clintons don't have that kind of money. He had to have gotten it from somewhere else. Jan said, like, Congress and senators become rich while in office. Yeah, well, he was more than rich. That's the thing. Like, the amount of money he had to have done the things that I mentioned, I'm not even talking about the crimes. I'm talking about just the stuff he had. The houses, the islands, and the planes. Cost a lot of money. You got to have a lot of money to have a plane. And first of all, you got to have a lot of stuff to do if you're going to own a plane. From what I've heard, again, I don't own a plane, but from what I've heard, the people who own planes, you got to have a very busy schedule to justify owning a plane or even justify flying private because it costs a lot of money to fly private. I just told y'all the cost of the gas. You fly from Palm Beach to New York, the gas alone is $10,000. You can get a flight ticket from Palm Beach to New York for like $300. So why would you spend $10,000 to fly private? You got to have a lot going on and you got to have a lot of money coming in. So that's the question. And Congress and senators, yes, I get what you're saying there, Jan, but this is a different level. Ellen Mary Nettles, thank you for the heart. Life of Riley said he was an op. Well, a lot of people are saying that. What we're trying to figure out is for who and who was funding him. Jan said, I read he was an informant. Yes, the same thing that Life of Riley just said. And the same thing as an asset. Op, informant, asset all mean the same thing. Of who? Number one, of who? Number two, why? And number three, who was giving him money? So these are three questions we got to ask. So even if those of you think he was an op or informant or an asset, of who? Why was he one? And number three, who was giving him the money? So we got to answer those three questions. We don't have answers. And Traditional said he had no degree. Yes, he didn't have a degree, but he was allegedly a finance guy. So doesn't mean you got to go to college to be a good finance guy. But most finance people come up through the ranks and they get a good college degree at a prestigious school. And that's how they get in the first place. He didn't do any of that. And he seemingly made more money than a bunch of other people who did it, which doesn't quite add up. It sounds too perfect. Millennial Gen X says he was taken out to shut him up and she will be next. I've heard people say that. We'll see. Jan said no finance degree. Yeah, no degree at all. Laman Kinaughton said the news said he is a real estate investor. That's a hell of an investor. I mean, he was an investor based on what we just read. He did invest and his properties went up in value, whatever he was doing. But how did he get the money to make the investment in the first place? Where did he get started at? It's not like he came. It's not like he was like people talk about Trump. They say, well, his dad set him up with some money. Okay, well, did Epstein's dad set him up with money? I haven't heard that. So again, where did he get it? 1234 B Best G said, how can you look into someone's money? You subpoena all their financial records and you can look into it. And when you're in a charge from the federal government, they can subpoena basically anything they want about you, your life, every dollar you ever made in your life. Dollars you made at a lemonade stand when you were 12, they can find out about it if they want to. They get all your records. Every dollar that you ever made that is traceable, they can find out about it if they want to. So that's how you can look into someone else's money. Now, if someone's not under investigation by the government, then you don't know how much money they got and you don't know where the money's going or where it came from. But if you're under federal investigation, the feds have enough resources to access anything they want about you. Every one of you listening to this, if the federal government decides to look into your life, they can find out whatever they want and they only have to tell you if they don't want to. So that's how. JN said, funny how you are losing your minds. Like this is a surprise to Dems, not. Who's you all and who's losing their minds? Sound like we're just having a conversation about the money that nobody's talking about. I don't think anybody's losing their mind on this subject because nobody's talking about it. Unique Pink, good morning. JN said, crazy how it is this that is making you guys see Trump for who he always has been. So JN, we'll give you the straw man of the day for making this comment. You wanted some attention, we'll give it to you. Straw man of the day goes to JN, who says, this is making you guys, I don't know who you guys is, I don't know who you're referring to. You said, see Trump for who he has always been. And again, don't know what you're referring to there. This conversation today is not about Trump. And I don't know who you guys is. And I don't think this is even doing that because that's not even I'm not even talking about the list thing. I'm talking about the thing that no one's talking about. Trump, people on the left, people on the right, nobody's talking about this. So you get the straw man for inserting this fallacious frame into the conversation. But now it's been mentioned. So now you leave any more comments like this, they'll be ignored. So JN, you spam my comments too much, so you're about to get blocked. Victor said, do you record your live? Yes, these are on YouTube. Every live is also recorded on YouTube. Traditional all day says a mansion at that. Yes, it was a very nice mansion, allegedly $18 million. We're at 62,000 likes. Let's get to 65, please. All right, let's see. Where was I? I lost my spot. Jan said, that's what happens when you have so much money just drop in the bucket. Well, we need more information than that. Where's he getting the money from? Because that money has to be replenished. Marky said, how about the film footage from the island? Yeah, well, they would have had to take him to trial to use that footage. He didn't go to trial because he passed away. Well, Heck said, how much info has been scrubbed from those files? Well, what we see in the files is not much. Everything is in the original set of files we already knew about. Those are the things we knew about. Now, the stuff we don't know about, people are claiming that there are more files that haven't been released. Pam Bondi alluded to this, and then she tried to backtrack and say she didn't say that, and she was trying to play the semantics game. It didn't look good on Pam Bondi. I don't know if she's telling the truth or not. It didn't look good the way it came out. But are there actual files? I don't know if we know. And a lot of people are claiming that Trump is on the list. If Trump was on the list, again, why didn't Biden put it up? That would have been a perfect thing to use against him in 2024. Why didn't they use it? I think either he's not on the list or there is no list or there's a bunch of people on the list. And if they put him out there, they have to put everybody out there. King Brenton said, Trump is the one who made the Epstein list a thing. Nobody else. That's the issue. In a way, you're correct. In a way, he did bring up the Epstein list. He was saying, I'm going to put out the Epstein list and transparency and all that. And his attorney general came out and made a bigger story out of it. And that's why she's in hot water right now. At least through the media, she's in hot water. I don't know if she's in hot water with her boss, but she's in hot water because she pushed the idea that she was going to release all this information. And then when they released it, it wasn't really anything new. So, Heck said, who inherited Epstein's money? Probably his family, his estate, whoever that was. Diana, thank you for the follow. Dobermom, King Britain said Epstein isn't passed away. He's back doing what he was doing. Okay, some have said that. So Epstein is like Tupac. He's still alive. Doberman said, that's what I want to know. Who funded him? I think if the people who funded him don't want to be known, they won't be known. Jay Sween, thank you for the gift. King Brenton said every political figure had ties to Epstein. Well, he had a lot of ties to a lot of people. That's true. Doberman, that's what I've heard. She mentioned Mossad. Maybe. We'll see. Or maybe we won't. That's the other thing. Maybe we won't see. King Brenton said, how you was on Diddy head, but give Trump and Epstein and the alike a pass. So this is straw man. King Brenton gets a straw man argument number 2. Straw man in the day award. Those who don't know what a straw man is, I forgot to explain it. Straw man is when someone takes something that you say or something they think you said or a position that they believe that you hold or that you actually hold. They rephrase it into something that you did not say or an opinion that you don't have or something that you didn't do. Then they represent it to you as if you did say it or that you do believe it or that you did do it. And then they argue against the straw man version of your point rather than the actual version of your point. So King Brenton, you get the straw man because he said how you was on Diddy head. That means like I was talking about Diddy a lot, but I'm giving Donald Trump and Epstein like a pass. First of all, I wasn't on Diddy's head. I was actually defending Diddy. And any of you who watched any of my lives on Diddy, y'all can verify this. I was defending him and saying that the case was trash from the very beginning. I said from the very beginning, this case is trash. They're trying to get him on a RICO charge. They don't have a RICO charge on him. And the girls who were the star witnesses were just as much involved in what they were doing as they were victims of what they were doing. They don't have a case here. I said he should have got off on everything. So you saying I was on Diddy's head is actually false and inaccurate. That's number 1. Number 2, did I give Trump and Epstein like a pass? I'm not giving anybody a pass because, first of all, I don't work for the federal government. So nothing I say has any real effect on any of these people. We're just talking about it. So I'm not giving anyone a pass and I can't condemn anyone because I don't have the power to do anything to these people. And how am I giving any Donald Trump has nothing to do with this. I'm talking about Epstein, not Donald Trump. Donald Trump and Epstein are linked maybe because they knew each other, but Epstein knew a whole bunch of people. So if you're going to play that game, then we got to put it with every name that he's connected to, which is a lot more than just Donald Trump. And Epstein is not even alive anymore, at least according to official news. So how are you giving a pass to someone who is, or not giving a pass to someone who's dead? So what could I possibly do to him? So that's the reason why yours is a strong man on multiple levels. So let's get the likes up, folks. Let's get the 70,000 likes. Unique Pink said, tap the screen, everyone. Don't forget. Yes, tap the screen, everybody. Ellen said, Delaware, home of JRB, who was rumored to own an island next to Little St. James. Who's JRB? And he said, Democrats are desperate to pin anything on Trump. So with Epstein being passed, it leaves an opening for, well, yeah, they would use it even if he was alive. Marky Man said he was definitely living a high life. Yeah, he was. OG McCoy said the problem is it doesn't matter about a list because both sides are going to find excuses for their party. Yes, was the reason why we won't see the list. My prediction is we will never see this alleged list. And Donald Trump is kind of making it clear that the list, if there's a list, it ain't coming out. And I think he's made that pretty clear. Dawn, thanks for the follow. Gemini Gypsy said he was an agent from what's been said. Yeah, I've heard people saying that. Now, if everyone believes he was an agent, then why did they have him as an agent? And 2, where were they getting the money from to give to him for him to live the way he was living? Those are 2 questions still need to be answered. And the first one is only a hypothesis. We don't know for sure, but that would have to be proven. And I don't think it could ever be proven. The guy's not alive anymore, or at least that's what we've been told. OG McCoy said, I want to see charges and handcuffs on anyone. People's going to make excuses for their party. It's sick. Well, OG, don't hold your breath on that one. I don't think that's going to happen. And again, if it was going to happen, it would have happened as soon as the files came out or as soon as his death came and charges happened. They would have took all those files. They would start charging everybody. They would have found a whole web of people and they would start gathering everybody up. That's what happens in conspiracies is you gather up everybody, you charge everybody, and this becomes this big career case. So those of you who don't know how the legal system works, the justice system, if you're a prosecutor and you're able to land a whale is like a big name person caught in a crime, that's a career case. If you get them put away, that builds your reputation to the point that you're somebody for the rest of your career just because you were able to do that. So the person who puts away a well-known person who put away John Gotti, I don't know who that was, but that person, that built their career. That solidified their reputation in that space. So anybody who works in that space probably knows who it is. If they would have got Diddy, those prosecutors, that would have been a big career thing for them. They kind of got him, but not really. So it's not going to be that big for them. But this is a big deal. Anyone who could have done that would have did it. I think it looks like, it sounds like some people with a higher level of status than these prosecutors told them, this is as far as you're allowed to go, and you're not going any further than that. And if that's what your boss says, that's pretty much what it is. So this is the game. This is the way it works sometimes in a bureaucracy. When you work in a bureaucracy, you got to do what the boss says. That's how it works. And if you work in a bureaucratic organization, you can't just do what you want to do. You do what the boss tells you to do. If the boss tells you to stop doing something, you stop doing it. Sophie said, what is your wildest theory? Now, well, I told you all the theories from what I say. I don't have a wild theory, Sophie the cat. I don't have a wild theory about it. I'm just going off of what I've read and what I've seen. Personally, as I said earlier, I really don't give a damn about the situation at all. It doesn't have any effect on me or my life. I was not one of the victims. I don't know any of the victims. At least I don't think I do. And yeah, what else I got to say about it? I don't care who's on the list, honestly, because as I said, even if the list comes out and there's 1,000 names on the list, that doesn't prove anything. Let's say my name was on the list. What if I just knew Jeff Epstein? What if he invited me to his island for vacation? What if I was flying from Palm Beach to New York and I know him and I said, yo, you going to New York tomorrow? He said, yeah. So let me ride with you. I just took a ride with him so I didn't have to fly a commercial. Does that mean I did something? All that means is I flew a commercial with him. I knew him. I shook his hand. Maybe he's my neighbor. Maybe we met at the gym or something like that. Doesn't necessarily mean that I did a crime. So just because somebody's name is on the list doesn't prove anything. You still will have to take them to court, and if you accuse someone of a crime, you must prove it in the court of law. That's the way it works. I said that about Diddy from the beginning. I said it about Epstein. They didn't get a chance to prove it. And I would say it about the name of anyone who happens to be on that list if and when that list ever comes out. Just because your name's on the list does not mean anything. So I don't have any wild theories. No said, what was his lady sidekick charged for? It's a good question. Let's find out what exactly she got. Tell me what were the charges for Ghislaine Maxwell and what she was convicted of and how much time she currently has. We looked this up like last week, but I forgot. So we'll go over it again. So Ghislaine Maxwell, his sidekick. Federal charges came in July of 2020. She had a 6-count indictment. So they had her for 6 different things, just like Diddy. They had Diddy with 5 counts. She had 6. So enticing minors to travel for illegal acts. That was 1. 2, transporting minors with the intent to engage in criminal activity. 3, sex trafficking. 2 of those. 4, trafficking of minors. 5, lying under oath. So she had a perjury charge for lying under oath, and from 5 years before that. In 2021, December, she was convicted. So she got charged in July of 2020, and a year and a half later, she was convicted. Manhattan federal judge found her guilty on 5 of the charges. She was acquitted on the enticing a minor to travel, but the other 5 they got her on. Conspiracy to entice, conspiracy to transport, transportation, trafficking, and trafficking conspiracy, all related to minors. She got convicted on 5 out of the 6. In 2022, so then they sent her back to jail in December 2021. 6 months later, she got sentenced. This is how it works. You get convicted, you got to sit in jail for another 6 months, and then they give you the sentence. Judge Allison J. Nathan sentenced Maxwell to 20 years in federal prison, followed by supervised release. So she got 20 years right now. So she is incarcerated at FCI Tallahassee. Her projected release date is July 17th, literally almost exactly to the day, 2037. So it's 2025. So she got 12 more years. So 12 more years she would get out in 2037. So that's her sentence. Now, right now, she did appeal her conviction, arguing that the non-prosecution agreement should have protected her because Epstein had a non-prosecution agreement from 2007. In 2024, her conviction was upheld. Now they're trying to take it to the Supreme Court. Her lawyers are trying to take it to the Supreme Court. So as of today, the Supreme Court has not overturned the conviction. The DOJ urged the court to reject her appeal, stating that 2007 deal did not apply to co-conspirators who were outside of Florida. She got charged in New York or a federal court. Meanwhile, her family is mounting a habeas corpus challenge, alleged that the trial was unfair and the government did not conduct business properly. Supreme Court decision is still pending. Supreme Court has a lot of different cases on their docket, so they just haven't gotten to it yet. It's another reason why you want to stay out of court, because court takes a long time. And the whole time you're waiting for something to happen, you got to pay your lawyers and or you got to sit in jail. Not a good situation. So that's Ghislaine Maxwell's current situation. So she's somewhere in Tallahassee, sitting in a federal correctional institution, and she got 12 more years in jail. In prison, that is. Kate said Trump danced YMCA with Epstein paying him to shut up. What does that even mean? Brian said maybe the CIA. Some have said that. Some have said that it's a much bigger and deeper thing. And there's an argument for that. The problem is with that argument is how do we ever prove that? Because if they don't, those 3-letter organizations, if they don't want you to know what's happening, you won't know. Especially when it comes to like everyday people. And if you're not an insider, if they don't want you to know what's going on, you won't know. So will we ever have an answer to this? Probably not. Pimp said, has this guy ever been listed on the Forbes list? I don't know. But what I will tell you about the Forbes list, Pimp 2022, is that if someone doesn't want to be on the Forbes list, they make sure they're not on the list. I remember I was reading the Forbes list magazine years ago, and they said this is the first year that the bottom level to be on the list is $1 billion. There's allegedly the 400 richest people in America. The entry point to be on the list is you had to be worth $1 billion. Did I say a million? I meant to say a billion. $1 billion. But here's the thing that a lot of people don't understand is that a lot of people who have that level of money, or if you want to call it wealth, they don't want people to know that they have it. So they don't want to be in any magazine with their name in it that says this person got $3 billion. What's the benefit of somebody knowing that you got $3 billion? For the most part, there's no benefit. You already got the money. Most people who make that kind of money don't make it by being rappers or entertainers or playing basketball. They make it by running businesses and owning assets. What benefit do they get if the whole world knows that they have money? Nothing. So a lot of people who have that kind of money don't want everybody to know that they got it. So that flies in the face of, in contrast to what a lot of you see commercially with a lot of people, often athletes and entertainers, making sure that you know that they have money. Most people don't want you to know they got money. I'm not suggesting any of you, if you ever come into any level of money that is more than average, don't tell people you got it. If they guess that they think you have it, let them think that, but don't tell people you have money. Usually there's not much to gain from that. Hearn Don the Don said, royalty sheiks from around the world? Maybe. Plausible said he had an island. He's known to be a billionaire. Why keep focusing on gas for a plane? Have you listened to the entire conversation? How much time was I talking about the gas for the plane? I'm explaining to you that costs money. Every time that plane flies, it costs money. You got to be replenishing that money. Where was he getting the money from? That was the conversation. So hopefully, I'm assuming you just came in and caught a snippet and you're asking that question. It doesn't make sense. OG said, good morning, Dre. I walked in and didn't say good morning. Well, good morning to you. I appreciate the manners. Katrina. Yeah, some say, Katrina, I get what you're saying. Some say it's the I country. I got to be careful saying too many things on the same day. I don't want to push my luck with TikTok. Niece61 said, wonder how he got recruited if he worked for the government. Well, maybe the government recruited him. Possibly, but we don't know. Plausible. Yeah, the things you said about Epstein being the face and Maxwell, that's Candace Owens is getting into this. So if any of you want to hear somebody go even deeper on this over a series of conversations, y'all should check out Candace Owens. She started talking about it yesterday, so I'm assuming she's going to do it every day. But she introduced the concept yesterday, and she's pretty good at breaking these things down. And she also has a visual. She can give you the visuals with it that I'm not giving you, what like screenshots and all this stuff, family trees and all this stuff. By the C and KDRN, thank you for the gifts. Plausible said, the president of the U.S. was Epstein's best friend. Why is he not part of the conversation? Donald Trump has been mentioned a couple times here today, but I also said this is not about Donald Trump. But a lot of people who don't like Donald Trump are trying to rope him into the conversation. Carolyn said, Trump turned on Epstein once he found out what he was about. He banned it from Mar-a-Lago, cut all ties. So there you go, right after that. So user said Trump would have been exposed if he was on it. Yes, that's my belief. Why did the Democrats use it against him? Connor's dad, we already talked about that. I think you came in late. We did talk about that. I am a Keita Halton said, is the latter more government people involved? I think. I would think so too. I think so too. If they shut down Maxwell, Crespo Realty, Ghislaine Maxwell, but her first name is spelled, she's French. So her name is spelled a little bit different than what it sounds like. So the way you spell the name is Ghislaine, but that's pronounced Ghislaine. Ghislaine. If you know anything about the French language, it doesn't sound anything, doesn't read the way it sounds, at least in English. So I would, Keita Halton, I would agree with you. That is probably government involved because the government can say shut down this investigation. That's it. It's over. And that's it. Nothing else you can do. Jeff, yes, that's correct. What you said. She's in Tallahassee 20 years. She got 12 left. Marky says, so he's hanging out with Elvis and Tupac. Elvis, Tupac, and Jeff Epstein all hanging together. Yes. Xenomorph said, anyone can be on anybody's list. Just because you talk at a social event doesn't mean you're friends. Also true. Correct. People are trying to connect Trump to it because it makes, or at least in their minds, it makes Trump look bad. Shar said, Trump is the important one right now because he ran his campaign on bringing out the Epstein. No, I talked about this yesterday. He did not run his campaign on the Epstein list. That not enough Americans care about the Epstein list for you to win an election talking about it. What Trump ran on and what he won on was immigration. He won on immigration. Now, he brought up a bunch of other things, but the biggest thing, if you had to boil his whole campaign down to one thing, it was immigration. And nobody can say it was the Epstein list. How many Americans care about the Epstein list? Not many. People are talking about it, but how many people really care? If they never talk about it ever again, how many people are going to be mad? Not too many. The only people really mad about it are politicians and people who really don't like Donald Trump, so they're looking for anything they can use to make him look bad. But the average American is not affected by the Epstein list. The average American wants to know, will I have a job next year? And how much money am I going to make? And how am I going to pay my bills? You can't win an election on some trying to go after some billionaire. Again, not enough people care about that. I'm okay. Good morning. Nancy said the problem is that he's a wealthy white businessman and not a politician. Well, I think people got more than one problem with Donald Trump, Nancy. I get what you're saying, though. I'm okay. Said too many times people are judged guilty by association. Like you say, we need to have proof. Yes. Even if someone's on the list, then a bunch of people are going to go crazy if the list comes out and Trump's name is on it. They're going to go crazy. I'll use it for content, guaranteed. But does it prove anything? No. Carolyn said, unfortunately, by the time you go to court and get proven innocent, your reputation is ruined. Often it is if you're a public figure. Absolutely. Keita Halton said, ChatGPT says Epstein files included pictures, videos, financial records, now classified docs or not classified docs. Okay. Well, until we see them, we don't know. It all just is hearsay at this point. And if the government doesn't want us to see them, we ain't seeing them. That's the point. If they don't want us to see it, this stuff is never coming out. Live Free says, so weird. None of these people care about us. None of us are in the Epstein file. Yeah, well, people get excited about it because it's something to talk about. That's why it's a current event. I'm okay. So look what they did to Martha Stewart. She didn't do less than what any other investor does. Yes, because the prosecutor who got her, that was a good career move for that prosecutor. That's the point. And that's why sometimes they'll go after you just to go after you. And if they can get something, they get it. As the saying goes, show me the man, I'll show you the crime. That's how it goes. If they want to get you, they'll get you. That applies to all of you. If they want to get you, they'll find something to get you on. Mary Ann Moreno, good morning. Good morning. Teresa Valerie said, have you looked at Senator Ron Wyden's speech? No, I've never even heard of Ron Wyden, and I have not saw his speech. And the thing is, until he gathers enough, he would have to gather a ton of momentum to get the government to do anything with what he's saying. And you said, I think you mentioned earlier that he was talking about the money, or somebody mentioned his name earlier about talking about the money. Just because he said it doesn't mean anything. Nothing's going to happen. And I heard that there were people in the Senate who were trying to force a vote on let's force the documents to be released. The problem is that, and it's people usually on the left, the problem is they don't have enough power in Congress to make that happen. If Donald Trump calls on all the Republicans and says, don't let them do it, it ain't happening. So now what? And the problem with this entire frame is, let's say the Democrats take over Congress in 2026. They can easily come out and put this issue out again and say, we're going to put it out. The problem is, I believe, if there is a list, if there are files that implicate other people, there's enough people implicated on both sides of the aisle that no one wants to deal with this. It's mutual destruction, and that's why it's never come out in the first place. So it's just a good talking point. And this is what politicians do, by the way. I want to make sure all of you don't lose the plot here. A lot of politicians on the Democratic side right now, because the Democrats have no power right now, they are using any toehold they can grab to kind of appear to make Donald Trump look bad. Let's get the likes up, folks. Let's get up to 100,000 likes. So let's get 18,000 more likes. We'll be at 100K for the day, please. Let's get to 18,000 more likes. Tap the screen, everybody. 18,000 more likes. If we can get up to 90,000 within the next 2 minutes, I'll keep going. I'll do overtime and make sure that we get to 100K. I'll answer some more comments. Let's get up to 90,000 before 9:30. It's 9:29. Let's get to 90,000 likes. Tap the screen, folks. Tap the screen. Tap the screen. So what I was saying was, a lot of Democratic politicians are pulling anything they can, any string they can, to keep people engaged and excited because this is their job. A politician's job, ostensibly their job, is they should be up on Capitol Hill and or inside of their areas where they got voted, actually working for you, listening to you, find out what your challenges are, what your problems are, what your needs are, what you want, and how they can help. That's ostensibly what their job actually is. Let's get the likes up, everybody. More likes, more likes, more likes. We're at 86. We're at 86.3. More likes, everybody. More likes. Let's get up to 90,000 by, we got a minute, less than a minute. 90,000. Keep going. Tap the screen. Tap the screen. Everybody tap the screen. Tap the screen. Tap the screen. Everybody tap the screen. Tap the screen. Everybody tap the screen. Tap the screen. Tap the screen. Let's get the lights up. We're at 88. We're almost there. Their job is allegedly to be helping you out. But you notice that a lot of them spend a whole lot of time talking about things that have nothing to do with you. Do y'all notice this? What does the Epstein list actually have to do with anybody who's listening to this? What is the direct effect the Epstein list has on anybody who's listening to this? Most of you can't answer the question. It has no effect. You just want to know about it. You just want to know about it because it might implicate somebody who you don't like, or you just want more information about something that you've heard about and it's piqued your interest. For most of us, there is no direct connection or direct effect that the Epstein list has on any of us, yet everybody is talking about it. This is exactly what politicians do. They get you talking about stuff that has no real effect on you, but you get excited about it, and you may even start to care emotionally about it, even though it does absolutely nothing for you. The entire time is going by. Your bills still need to be paid. You're getting older and older by the day. Your kids are growing up, and nothing that politician is doing, talking about the Epstein list, is doing anything to help you in any of those situations when the government is allegedly designed to support you and put you in a position to live a better life. Now, personally, I don't agree with that concept. I tell people never depend on the government for anything, but a lot of Americans do look at the government as if the government is supposed to solve their problems. So my question is, what does talking about the Epstein list do to solve any of your problems? The answer for most of you, 99.9% of Americans, is absolutely nothing. But everybody's all excited about it because a lot of people, especially on the political left, citizens who are on the political left, they have this idea that maybe Donald Trump is implicated, and that can make you feel better about saying, well, Donald Trump's a bad guy. Maybe Donald Trump should be arrested. Maybe Donald Trump should be charged. Let me give you all a news flash. If the files come out and Donald Trump's in it, nothing's going to happen. Okay, it's just to help any of you who's on the political left, or you're anti-Trump or anti-MAGA, whatever you call yourself. If the files come out and Donald Trump's name's in it, nothing's going to happen in terms of tangible things. Now, of course, you're going to get a bunch of Democrats using this against him. It's going to dominate the news cycle for a month, maybe 3 weeks. And Trump's going to come out and say something, and they're going to come out and say something. There's going to be all this back and forth. There will be no charges. There will be no court case. No one's going to jail, and everybody's going to talk about it. And the entire time that 3 weeks is going by, you still got to pay your bills. Your kids are still going to school. You're getting closer and closer to retirement, and you still got a life to live and a family to support. And the entire 3 weeks, your politicians that you voted for are not doing anything to help you with those things. All they're talking about is the Epstein list, which has no real effect on your real life. This is how they get you in the PSYOP. Okay, so that guy whose name I can't say, the bald-headed guy who used to be a fighter who lives in Europe, who says the Matrix, this is the Matrix, folks. This is part of it. When they get you all excited about some nonsense that has nothing to do with you, but you want to talk about it because it is interesting. And the reality is, nothing personal to any of you listening to this, but the reality is for most Americans, their everyday life is not interesting. So anything that is interesting, they get excited about it. It's like a cat chasing a laser pointer up the curtains. Does this really matter in the big picture? The answer is hell no. But it gives people something to talk about. So anyway, let's continue. Live Free said, I don't care about the list. However, as a parent, we're disgusted by it. Well, first of all, we got to find out if there actually is a list. So you're disgusted by it. We don't know if there isn't it. First of all, we need proof that there is a list because we don't know yet. And then find out who's on it and what does the list contain. Because the list might just say, here are the people who flew on my plane, because the plane was flying every 3 days for several years. That could be a long list of people who flew on the Epstein plane. Again, what does that prove? Doesn't prove anything. Doesn't even matter where the plane went. Let's say I flew on a plane from New York to Epstein Island. Does that prove I did anything? No. So again, what kind of list are we talking? We don't know yet. Is there a list? We don't know. OG McCoy said, I would say a list is important to the victims and any victim of the child assault. I would disagree. Why would the list be important? If they were one of the victims, they already know. They already know who did it. What do they need a list for? If I was one of the victims, I don't need a list. I was there. I don't need to see a list. I was right there. I saw it. I saw it happen. I experienced it. What's the list going to do for me? All the list is going to do is get the people who weren't involved to know or believe that they know what happened. It doesn't do anything for the people who actually were engaged, positively or negatively. Again, this is something to get everybody excited and keep everybody distracted. This is the Matrix, folks. When that guy, that bald-headed guy says the Matrix, this is one of the pieces of the Matrix. Spin said, just checking in. Good morning. Good morning to you. User said, keep up the good work, or should I say talking points? I guess you could say both. Gear Up said, right, that list means absolutely nothing. Generally, it doesn't. I'm okay said, cat with the laser is a good analogy. Well, that's exactly what it is. This is what politics do every day, by the way, if y'all don't notice. Most of the stuff that they talk about is not interesting because most of the stuff that is going to change your everyday life is not really that interesting, but it's important. And that's the thing that a lot of people don't get. There's a difference between something being urgent and something being important. People get excited about the headline news. And listen, I guess you call me part of the Matrix here because I use current events. I talk about the things that is being talked about in the news. Why? Because I know everybody's interested in it. I understand this. At the same time, you can't fall victim to it. You got to learn how to use it, but not be used by it. So you can appreciate the existence of the Matrix, but don't fall into it. That's the key. And a lot of people fall into it. Eric said, you're right. Nothing will change, but this stuff does matter in the sense of who represents America. Well, he already represents America. That's the point that I made about Trump. Let's say the list comes out and he's on it. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? Somebody leave a comment. What's going to happen? Let's say the list comes out, Donald Trump's on it. He gonna send his Department of Justice to charge him with a crime? On what evidence? There's no evidence. You being on the list is not evidence of a crime. They would have to actually get the information and prove that he did something. They would have to get a victim to come and testify. They would have to get, I guess, Epstein. He ain't around. Maybe they have to get Maxwell. Is she going to testify? I doubt it. All right. So what actually is going to happen? Nothing's going to happen. XTR said the list will just be a fight log. Exactly. That's what I said. So you got a fight log. You got to list everybody who's going to be on your plane. Okay. So Bill Clinton was on the plane. Okay. Now what? What does that mean? Salma, thanks for the follow. Keita Halton said, I would love to read the grand jury testimony. All right. Well, you're talking in future tense. All right, you keep thinking that. You ain't never seen that grand jury testimony. That ain't never happening. Gear Up said, was this a log? And yes, Trump is in the log, but that means nothing. Well, yeah, Trump uses planes. I mean, that's not news. So exactly. Kathleen said, complete distraction. Craig said, soup game on point. Thank you. G Black, thanks for the heart. I'm okay said, emotional warfare. That's what I think. Keep people stirred up emotionally so they are distracted. And is also to make you think that the politicians are working for you. So getting you excited about anything that goes against Trump gets a whole lot of left-leaning citizens excited because they believe that the Democrats are working for them because they keep talking about Donald Trump every day. But talking about Donald Trump is not doing anything to pay your bills, help your kids get a better education, or put you in a better position to retire. So why are you getting excited about that? So this is the whole game. Again, this is the Matrix. Whenever y'all hear the Matrix, this is part of the Matrix. Kathleen said, Vance. What about him? OG said, the list should equal charges filed. They were trafficked to someone, justice needs to happen. No, that's not true. OG, you can't file a charge because somebody's name was on the list. That's illogical. There would have to be some preponderance and some reason to believe that a crime took place in order to file a charge. You file a charge, you have to have a reasonable reason to believe that a crime took place. Someone's name being on the list is not a reasonable reason to believe that you committed a crime. And you said they were trafficked to someone. Yes, Epstein. That's the whole thing. They were trafficked to him. They didn't do a bigger dive on who else was involved because before his trial was to occur, he passed away, at least according to what we were told. Now, had the case happened, then maybe we would have found out. But according to what we have now, the official story we have now is that all the trafficking that Mrs. Maxwell was doing was all just for her guy, Jeff. And that's it. Nobody else was involved. And she's in prison. Don't know if she's talking. He's not alive. He ain't talking. So how are you going to do this? If you're going to prove a crime, you need eyeball witnesses. You need people who are willing to testify. And you got to corroborate whatever they say. How are you going to do it? You got to get one of them to talk. If Maxwell ain't talking and Epstein ain't allowed to talk, and if she won't talk, you have nothing. There's no case. Even the victim claiming that something happened is not enough, because then it becomes he said, she said, and in a criminal case, you must prove something beyond a reasonable doubt. So if I say yes and you say no, there's reasonable doubt. The fact that we're both saying different things, there's reasonable doubt. There's no way that there's a preponderance of proof. If I say something happened and you say it didn't happen, you can't prove a case on that. Annie says, same, just something else to complain about. Yeah, pretty much. We're at 110,000 likes. Thank you, everybody, for getting the likes up. Craig said, lying about Trump only makes him stronger. Well, just talking about him makes him stronger. It doesn't even matter what they say. And again, I've said this every day for the last 3 days. This is the biggest problem the Democrats have right now, is that their only frame of reference is just to talk about Donald Trump. Positively or negatively, that's all they do. The problem is, eventually people are going to look at them and say, okay, well, who are you? What are you about? And Democrats right now don't have an answer to the question. Mark Love, thanks for the follow. China H, thank you. XTR said employees of the island can talk. Well, why ain't they talking? Have you heard one of them talk? I ain't heard nothing. So that's the whole thing. And you go watch the Netflix documentary. They talked to a few of them, but not all of them was willing to talk. And that's the whole point. Jeff Epstein was no dummy. I mean, you might not have liked what he was about, allegedly, but he was no dummy. All right, the people he had working for him ain't talking, and they ain't talking for a reason. Kingdom Business said these people are so concerned about a list. What's going to happen after that? They're not concerned about the list. They're concerned about Trump. If Trump wasn't the president, nobody would be talking about the list. Notice nobody was talking about the list when Biden was president. Y'all know that? Y'all notice that? The documentary about Epstein came out in like 2020 or 2021, something like that. Biden was president for 4 years. Why was nobody talking about the list? Because they weren't trying to get Biden. Now, because Trump is president and people want to get Trump, people care about Trump. So if they can somehow implicate him in their own minds, make him look bad, that makes them feel good. Does it actually tangibly do anything? The answer is no. It does nothing. But it will make you feel good for a day or 3. But other than that, nothing's going to happen. And your bills still got to be paid while you're distracted by this. So all that said, everybody, I do these live streams Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern. If you like this one, come back on Monday. If you didn't like it, come back on Monday. We got some more things to talk about. We got to talk about Biden. Speaking of Joe Biden, we're going to talk about Joe Biden, and we're going to talk about the possible auto pen that was doing all the work at the end of his presidency. Joe Biden's doctors have been called to Capitol Hill to testify. They have refused to testify. Those things will get discussed. They might be the next topic. They might not be the next topic. But make sure you come back on Monday, and we'll talk about whatever we're going to talk about on Monday. By the way, click the links in my profile. The link in my profile will take you to get copies of my free books. The third day, that red book right there is my most popular framework. You can get a free copy of that book. Just cover the shipping. The link is in my profile. The Sales Discipline System. This is my latest book. This is exactly what the title says, Sales Discipline System. You're a salesperson. Everybody's a salesperson. Get this book for free. Just cover the shipping. This book, the third day, is all about how you show up and give your best effort when you least feel like it. And we got a bunch of other books. 100 Mental Game Best Practices, The Super You. This is the Mandarin version of Work on Your Game. We got the book translated into Mandarin. This is the English version of Work on Your Game. We offer these all in our funnels. So we do sales funnels. So if you buy one book from us, or you just cover the shipping on the book, because we're giving it to you for free, we'll offer you more books right there in the funnel. So who reads one book? Nobody reads one book. Either you read books or you don't. Nobody reads a book. People read books, plural. So I got a bunch of books. We'll sell you more than one book. Just go to the funnels, go to the links inside my profile, and you can see access to Dre GPT. Dre GPT is, you heard of Chat GPT, right? So now we got Dre GPT. So Dre GPT is, here's the visual version of Dre GPT. All right, that's Dre GPT right there. And this is where you can ask my bot, trained bot. Does it look like me? A bot trained on me. Any question you want on any subject, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You get access to that by going to dreallday.com/AI. dreallday.com/AI. You get access to Dre GPT. Here's another version of Dre GPT. Does that one look like me too? It's Dre GPT. You get those again at dreallday.com/AI. You ask somebody, give me a sample question. I'm gonna ask Dre GPT a question. So y'all can, I'm gonna give y'all one test drive. Somebody give me a sample question to ask Dre GPT. Y'all see it right there. Give me a question. I'll ask the question and then I'll answer it. And then we'll wrap up this session here. Somebody give me a question that I can ask to Dre GPT. So, Marky man, appreciate you. Well, heck, you'll be back on Monday. Appreciate you. So, all right. So a bunch of you giving me a bunch of questions. Let's see. Let me see if I can pick one. What's HJR 1933? I'm not sure Dre GPT is trained to answer that question. Did Biden use AutoPen? Let's ask that one. Okay. So this is Dre, and here's a question coming from my live audience on TikTok during my live stream as a demonstration of Dre GPT. The question is, did Biden use the AutoPen? Okay, so they spelled pen wrong. All right, so did Biden use the AutoPen? All right, there's the question. Let's see what it says. Thinking. So, according to Dre GPT, the answer is yes, Biden did use the AutoPen. It was used to replicate his signature on thousands of documents, including major clemency and pardon decisions, particularly at the very end of his term. He defended the practice. He told New York Times he personally approved every decision made, every single one of those, even if staffers used broader categories. So we'll talk about this when I do the live on it. Ask me a question that's more personal, professional development. This is a news item, so it's not really about my opinion there. Ask me a question that's more personal, professional development. Ask me an evergreen question. Somebody give me an evergreen question and I'll ask Dre GPT. Somebody give me an evergreen question, like something about mindset, business, personal growth, personal development, sales, entrepreneurship. Give me a question like that and I'll answer it. If it's a current event question, then it has to go off of what's actually being reported. So that doesn't really get to show off Dre GPT's skills. Anybody got an evergreen question I can ask Dre GPT? Somebody got something? So we got a couple sample questions that we put in here when people first start getting in here. Like, what's wrong with me? I feel stuck in my life. How do I get out of this? How do I make more money in my business? What's Dre's take on handling rejection? How do I turn my mindset into a business strategy? What's the next step for my personal brand? How can I build confidence under pressure? How about that one? All right, I'm gonna ask this question. How can I build confidence under pressure? This is a sample question that's available as soon as you open up Dre GPT. Now it's gonna start answering the question. All right, so here's what it says. Building confidence under pressure comes down to preparation, performance, and presence. Here's the real play. Confidence is earned, not given. You don't find confidence. You create it by showing up and doing the work over and over again. That's how you build proof for your brain. You earn belief by stacking wins, especially when it's hard. Most people are hoping to feel ready. That's backwards. You perform, then you feel ready. Number 2, pressure equals spotlight, not danger. Pressure is not the enemy. Pressure is a signal. This moment matters. That means the spotlight is on, which is good. You've been preparing for this. Train your mind to see pressure as a stage, not a threat. Reframe the moment. This isn't stress, it's game time. You're not being tested, you're being revealed. Number 3, and this is exactly what I would say. Number 3, preparation better than affirmation. You don't need to hype yourself up. You need to know that you've done the work. Confidence under pressure comes from preparation, meeting, execution. No prep, you panic. If you are prepped, you perform. Number 4, think less, trust more. When the lights come on, your thinking slows you down. Pressure moments require flow, not thought. That's why you train. So execution becomes instinct. The game doesn't ask if you know what to do. It asks, can you do it right now? So a quick drill to use today. Before your next pressure moment, ask yourself, have I prepared for this? What outcome am I focused on? What's my first move? Then shut your brain up and move. Trust your preparation. If you want the full game on confidence, how to build it fast and lock it in long term, that's inside ASAP Confidence and deeper inside Work on Your Game University. Are you ready for that level or you just want to keep dabbling? This is literally what Dre GPT says back to you when you ask this question. So that's a sample of what Dre GPT can do. Go to the link in my profile and you can get access to Dre GPT. We'll give you a 7-day trial for free and you can use it yourself and ask it any question that you want. That link is in my profile. Also, if you're a member of the Circle, which is my group coaching program, you get automatic access to Dre GPT as part of your membership. And we got a whole bunch of other stuff. That's all at workonyourgameuniversity.com. Just click the link in my profile. We got it all. Everybody have a great weekend, great Friday. We are out of here. Thank you for the likes. Thanks to the moderators. We are out. Work on your game.